Thanks for coming.
Thank you. You know, first I have to apologize because I have a cold, and I'm a bit worried that somebody, you know, in DC on the Hill will say that it's further evidence that there is no global warming. President Gerard and distinguished friends and guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to be here and honored to be able to speak to you today. Thank you, and thank you for organizing such a conference. France will host the next meeting of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP21, from November 30th to December 11th, 2015. Reserve your hotel rooms in Paris, ladies and gentlemen. 2015 is the deadline the parties of the convention have set for achieving an international agreement on climate change. The aim, as you know, as the President has said, is to establish the course of action and the legal framework to limit average global warming to less than 2 degrees Celsius. As President Obama said in his State of Union address, we don't need to be rocket scientists to see that climate change is happening and that we need to take action. We must take action now to preserve both our quality of life and that of generation to come. In the coming negotiations, France will act as an impartial and pragmatic facilitator. Why do I precise that? It's because, as you know, there are many different parties. There are very many different interests, and it would be extremely dangerous and counterproductive to approach this negotiation simply as a Western country lecturing or taking the high moral ground. We have to take all the legitimate interest of all the countries, including the emerging countries, which don't want their growth to be impaired. First, we will listen to each of our partners so we can find an agreement that is both realistic and pragmatic. We are not asking for all or nothing. We are not asking for one size fits all. Our goal is to find something that works for everyone. It means that we will favor compromise and we will take into account national circumstances in order to reach a fair and universal agreement. France will provide technical assistance to the most vulnerable countries so that they can follow through with their national contributions. Secondly, we will encourage the mobilization of all the stakeholders, from state actors to investors, from local leaders to NGOs, from business to academics. All of civil society must be involved if we want to make a difference over the long term. And that, I think, it's also a difference with Copenhagen in 2009, that we have to now to work with everybody. You know, it's not only a question of the states deciding or imposing an agreement on the society. We need to have, coming out of Paris, which will not be the final stage, of course, of our endeavor, to have a common message coming from the states, coming from the local authorities, coming from the business, coming from the civil society, that we are serious about low carbon economy. In short, France will support an agreement that is sustainable in order to guide and speed up action against climate disruption over the long term, universal in order to take into account the needs and capabilities of both developing and developed countries, ambitious in order to be able to keep global warming below the limit of 2 degrees Celsius, while ensuring continued development by helping each country to adapt to the consequences of climate disruption. The agreement will be, of course, the heart of the COP21 outcome, but it's not the only component. France aims more broadly to help create a climate alliance that would bring together all stakeholders willing to do their part. The government, as I've said, and also the local authorities, NGOs, scientists, citizens, of course, the private sector. I think, you know, when I'm traveling a lot in the US, spreading the gospels of COP21, and I discover that contrary to you know, I think the small noise coming from within the Beltway, this country is moving forward. It's moving forward, taking initiatives. Local authorities are taking a lot of initiatives. Even if they don't call it fighting against climate change, they are speaking about energy efficiency, which is to be true, which is more or less, as for the consequences, the same. This country is moving forward, and as usual, like in any country, is moving ahead of its politicians. This alliance will have 4 components, which will work in conjunction with each other. The agreement itself, of course, but also the national contributions from all countries. As you know, the countries are presenting right now their contributions. The United States has done it, France has done it, but also Russia, and China will do it very soon. A financial and technological package aimed at mobilizing public funds and channeling private investment towards a low-carbon economy and climate resilience projects. We aim to reach $100 billion per year by 2020, and will specifically target vulnerable countries. As you know, the United States, France, Germany, and other countries have already announced their contribution. We are still far from $100 billion. And it's a critical part of the game because we have to take into account the constraints that are going to be imposed on some fragile economies. We have to help them in financial terms, but also to help them in terms of technological transfers. So the conference organized in Addis Ababa, you know, on this financing part will be critical. There will be also in Paris, we hope, an agenda of solutions that we call the Lima Paris Action Agenda, in which non-state actors outline their future actions with respect to mitigation, adaptation, finance, and technology. The action agenda aims to speed up the mitigation and adaptation action of all countries and to send a strong message that the shift in development models and the transition towards low-carbon, resilient economy is underway. Given the urgency and scale of the challenge, it will highlight the need for government, businesses, and the financial community to work together and focus their effort on the common goal. In practical terms, the action agenda covers cooperative initiatives led by government and non-government actors on a voluntary basis, as well as more individual commitments made by a broad range of actors, notably business. France is going to establish in the coming weeks a platform, an internet platform where the actors will be able to state their commitments. You know, I'm meeting CEOs of US business companies, and I'm struck that in a lot of them, I am, you know, really the answer is quite positive. You know, yes, we want to do things. We want to take commitments. Either you have large companies, but you have also industrial sectors which, for instance, you know, you have the cement industry, which is, I guess, producing 10% of the CO2 emissions. And they said, yes, we are going to make efforts. We are going to put on the table, you know, proposals for the coming decades. And it's the same thing with the major oil producer. You know, actually, I was in Houston last week. And, you know, it happens that being in Houston to spread the gospel of climate change reminds me of the fact that Governor Romney, you know, as a Mormon missionary, was trying to convert the inhabitants of Bordeaux to a non-alcoholic religion. So, you know, so suddenly I felt the predicament of Governor Romney with a lot of sympathy. And, but actually it's a bit an unfair joke for Texas, because, as you know, the city of Houston is quite active on fighting the climate change, and we are back to my idea that the civil society of this country is really mobilized. So we have many positive signs that make us optimistic for the conference. And today, just today, thanks to Governor Brown, we had a new example of that. And I can salute also the recent decision of Ontario to join the California and Quebec cap and trade market. On its side, the European Union, as Governor Brown has quoted, has been a pioneer in developing a large-scale carbon market, even if this market could be improved, and it's an understatement. It makes it possible to drastically reduce our greenhouse emissions. And by setting the ambitious goal of 43% reduction in gas emissions for companies under the cap-and-trade program by 2030, it gives businesses the clear long-term signal they need to make investment. There is a new dynamism at work, and carbon markets will continue to be developed all over the world. The fact that strong economies like yours and like ours are taking action and seeing the economic opportunities offered by taking action on climate change is a key element of the negotiation. It will help us gain public and political support and help change the spirit of the negotiation. So it's really a call that I'm making to you. We need your mobilization. We need your expertise. We need your experience to show that we are now entering a new era, to have a clear message coming out of Paris. We need you to speak out about the opportunities that climate action offers for business and society as a whole. Climate change action, you know, is good for business. There is money to make. We have to send a message, go for it. We need states, we need cities to be in Paris, and you know, as you are among the most powerful and effective players in fighting climate change, the Mayor of Paris will organize a summit of local authorities in Paris between the 4th and the 7th of December. There will be a business and climate change summit in Paris in May at the UNESCO headquarters. So we do hope to create the momentum. COP21 will be also an excellent forum for all actors, public and private, to communicate their action. We are expecting about 40,000 participants. We are going to create villages for the different type of participant, a gallery of solutions where companies will be able to present their latest innovation, will also be in the immediate vicinity of the negotiation center and the climate villages. So there will be many ways to get involved. At the same time, you know, 40,000 participants, I don't know why, but I expect some problems of organizations. But I won't be there. So in conclusion, I would like to stress that the December summit in Paris will not just be a negotiation as usual conference. It is the deadline that all the countries have set for themselves to reach a global climate agreement. And as I've said, as I've emphasized in a very repeated way, it's not just for national government. We are inviting all of you and the businesses and the local governments because we know that we need them to achieve success. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much also for your ideas, you know, for your proposals, because frankly, it's a tough challenge. And when the French president announced that we wanted to host the conference, you can be sure that all the French bureaucrats were totally devastated. So I'm sure that it will be also very exciting to show that for once French bureaucracy was wrong. Thank you.